Hello and welcome to Transcendental Transformation, the place where spirituality and transformation unite. Host Miss Raina imparts truth so that you can break through your limiting beliefs and evolve into a deeper consciousness. As you go about your day, remember, before every breakthrough, there is a breakdown. And now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Transcendental Transformation. I'm your host, Miss Raina, and today is Tuesday, January 23rd, 2018. As always, we are coming live from the W4CY studios here in West Palm Beach, and I hope all of you are doing well. I cannot believe January is almost over. I think we got another week. It goes by so fast. It was just my birthday a couple days ago, and now all of a sudden January is almost over, and before you know it, it's going to be 2019. The time goes by way too fast. But, at least I'm enjoying it. This year so far has been amazing. It has been completely different already than 2017. This weekend we had a softball tournament, and it was nice. I was helping out a friend, and we were on a team, and we just got our butts whooped. I mean, the team that I was on was a great group of people and stuff, but a lot of the players did not belong in, and it was an upper division tournament, and it just wasn't, a lot of players shouldn't have been on this. I felt bad for our team because, they came out and wanted to at least win, and it was just not happening at all. I mean, we had a 3-game rule. We were in and out within the 3 games, and even our last game, we were losing 30-1 in our second inning. I don't think I've ever lost by that much. It was just sitting out in the outfield watching people just, get base hits, make mistakes and everything, and, it's part of the game. You just got, you win some, you lose some, and sometimes you win by strong, sometimes you lose by strong. But yeah, so, but at least I had fun, and that's the important time. Anytime I'm out there, whether I'm doing well or not, or the team's doing well or not, a lot of my friends were out there, and I just had an amazing time. But I do want to tell you, I got home, and all of a sudden my friends started texting me, "Congratulations, Miss Raina, you won the raffle." And I totally forgot I entered this raffle, and I won a nice bat. I won a nice $300 2018 DeMarini New Breed U-Trip bat, and I am so excited because I love this bat. I love it. It's just so exciting. I'm so excited I can't even get my words together right now. But yeah, I've never won anything before. This is the first time in my life that I've ever won a contest of any sort or a raffle or anything. So I was totally floored, and I even was joking with the guy. I was like, he's like, that's funny. He's like, because every time someone says that, that's usually who ends up winning. So maybe that's the key. Maybe if that's the case, then I have to keep saying every time I enter a raffle, I've never won anything before, and see what happens. But I want to give a big thank you to Bat Nation and Jed Rodriguez, who put on this raffle, and thank you guys so much. I really appreciate this, and I really appreciate the gift. I know it's an expensive gift, and let me tell you guys, I will definitely use it well in tournaments and games, so thank you so much. So Chad, my man, how are you doing this week?
Doing well. Good evening to you. A rainy evening to you.
Yes, it is. It is raining all of a sudden.
Raining on Raina. Doing good, actually, but this weekend it was not so good.
Why not?
Very ill. Flu, take you down, chills, need to be in the hot bathtub. I have no hunger for anything type of sickness. Had to basically can 2 gigs and spent a lot of time in bed trying to sleep, but, it was like a restlessness at the same time, and, drove me nuts.
Did you have high fever, too?
Yep, had a fever, no appetite, chills. So it was a not so fun weekend, but I'm happy for you that you got your first win in a raffle or a prize win in all these years of life.
Yes, 40 years, and it takes me one time, right?
And people, the funny thing I learned before the show started is the name of their softball team this weekend was the Bad News Bears.
Yes, they were. We were the Bad News Bears, and God, did we model that movie spot on.
Yeah, as soon as you were tagged with that name, it was like somebody had to be on the bottom.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But remember, the Bears always, the came to the top at the end or something?
No, they
lose at the end.
They lost everything, but they were playing the championship team, and I think that they scored 1 run or something like that. So
that was enough.
Yeah, so they
Right
just
on.
had a good time. So
well, that's what you look back. At least we had. Did you have a good time or no?
I always have a good time.
All right, so that's the important part.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that you were sick, though. I'm glad to see that you're doing better. You look a little bit more healthier. Your color's well, so.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think I'm back in the saddle.
Oh, good. Are you having gigs this weekend?
We only have 2 this weekend. We got Thursday night at Lauderdale by the Sea, and then Saturday night at Anchor Inn in Lantana.
Oh, nice. Very cool. Very cool. Well, I hope you do very well this weekend.
Thank you much.
All right. Thank you, Chad. All right, everybody. If you'd like to give us a call, you can call us in at 561-623-9429. You can web chat us. I'm on the website right now at the w4cy.com website. You can download the W4CY radio app. And as always, we are doing live on Periscope. If you go on Periscope and search Transcendental 13, you'll find the show happening right now or the replays. And we are doing the recording for the YouTube live channel or the YouTube channel at youtube.com/Transcendental Transformation. All right, so let's get into tonight's show because tonight is an important show. Tonight is all about the importance of our mental health. And why is our health so important to us? Well, I'm glad you asked because that's the first thing we got to ask. Besides spiritual health, mental health dictates what we do. I mean, if we always talk about our physical health. I know a lot of us, we spend so much time trying to get fit, doing exercising, eating right, or some of us don't even do that. And, we try to meditate, we try to do this, but, we don't always look at our mental health. And remember, our mental health is just as important as our spiritual health, our physical health, our emotional, and these kind of dictates how we react to. A lot of us, today I was in, once in a while I like to go in chat rooms just to kind of chat, kill boredom and stuff. And I was even in a chat room and I made a joke and 20 minutes later someone came in and saw it because it really wasn't much activity in the room. And just jumped all over me and started to get all crazy. And I looked at her like, what's the issue? And this is what I'm talking about is how we react, what we do, what goes on in our life. Because when we look at things and things aren't healthy, or something's bothering us in our mental aspect or our emotional aspect, we become more reactive. And you can always tell somebody, hey, I'm not perfect. I know Chad's not perfect. I know you're not perfect. We all have our moods. We all have our grumpy phases and everything like that. But it's how we react to things, especially that aren't important. The joke that I made had nothing to do with anybody, and it was done for 20 minutes. And somebody sometimes are just looking for just to fight with some people, and and this tells a lot about us because if we're reactive and we allow our mental health to dictate how we act, what we do, and everything like that, then this affects everything. This affects our job. This affects our personal relationships. This affects our romantic relationships, our careers. And like I said, it tells you a lot about yourself because, if we love ourselves and we work on ourselves, and this is so important, and I know a lot of people have heard this before, but, working on ourselves shows us that we care about ourselves, shows us that our mental health is at least getting stronger because we look at it and we say, hey, these things I need to tackle, these things I need to get done, and I need to project myself into the area that I want to go into. But if we're just living a life of emotional reaction or mental reaction or emotional reaction due to our mental state, then it's going to control our perception of life. And how many of us do? How many of us sit there and we have this perception of life? How many of us are always angry? Every time we every time we look on a social media, we go outside or we turn on TV, we're glued to the negativity, or if that's the way you look at life as negative and positive, but we're glued to the chaos, as I always say. We're glued to, we have our perception that the world is a certain way, and we're going to find those areas, we're going to find those perceptions in every part of the world. And I know a lot of people are like that. A lot of people, become victims to our mental and our emotional health. And we have to learn to do this because when our mental emotion, this is why I talk about chaos, and this is why I talk about our ego and everything so many times on the show. And for those of you who have been listening, for 5 years, I go over this subject all the time because there's always different avenues. Even though sometimes it sounds like the same material, there's always different avenues that I'm trying to reach and teach you to understand your emotional and mental well-being. Our perception of life is going to tell us what we think about ourselves. Those of us that hate life, those of us that think that, the world owes us something, or that the world's always crapping on us or whatever, obviously play the victim. Those that are afraid of the world and out to prove to somebody, and I don't need anybody, those are people play the survivor. And I don't break down, I break down the ego very simply, because I don't go into super ego, id, and all that stuff. I just I break it down for people to understand the chaotic side of the ego breaks down into victim and survivor, and that's the way we do. And I was even having a talk with one of my students today about this, is that I don't need anybody, I can do this on my own. And as much as we think that's being strong and that's being independent, what it's really doing is creating chaos, because our perception says, the world's after me, the world's going to hurt me, or the world's going to let me down. We brought up the thing, how many of us have heard that said, hey, well, if you want something done, you got to do it yourself, right? And I know I hear that probably, I don't know how many times a week I hear that. I'm sure we all, especially if we're in business all the time, we hear that. And that's our perception, because we're playing the survivor. We are so afraid that someone's going to screw it up and we're going to get penalized for it, that our perception of life is dictated. And fear is part of the mental health. Yes, we talk about the emotional side of, of chaos as far as anger and grief and all that stuff, but it's also part of the mental health aspect as well. So, I can, a long time ago, and this got just popped up into my head, I can give an example of a long time ago. I used to work at a kava bar, and I used to, do massages there while I was going through school for my my doctorate in Oriental medicine. And one day I got a text that I was fired and banned from this, and I got no reason. And I texted him and finally said, he said, well, he didn't just respond. So I finally asked someone, I said, hey, can you go in there and find out what happened? Not like, hey, if you want me gone, that's fine. I'm not, whatever happened, but I think I deserve a little bit of an answer, since I was there for 5 years. And apparently, they created some reason, they listened to somebody, but the basis of the thing was because I used too many napkins, and I flossed my tooth one time at a table. And and that's okay, because, in my perspective, I was good to them. I was loyal to them. Like I said, I was there 5 years, and I was there for them when they opened the door. I worked for them for many years. And at first, my reaction was a little shocked and disbelief. And I know a lot of us who play the victim, who have mental health where, we play in the victim and everything like that. This can be a slap in the face, especially when our perception of life is that, hey, I'm good, life is good, there's going to be no one knocking me off my boat, the waves, everything's calm and everything's doing. And, our first reaction is going to be shock and disbelief. And I was. And for a second, I was kind of hurt, because right away my mind wanted to go, well, Miss Raina, you were good to them. Why is this? What happened? There's no reason. And if this really is the reason for using too many napkins to clean off the tables from all the spilling of the kava, and you floss your tooth, well, what kind of reason is that? And right away, doesn't our survivor and our victim start to kick in? And I know so many of you have these scenarios where you feel you've been unjustly done. And we look at things as justification, right? We look at things as fairness. We think that life is owed us fairness, that life and the things that we're doing, if we're loyal to somebody, they're going to be loyal to us. And, in a fantasy land, that is great. In a world where, things like I would love that. I would love if every day that, because I'm honest with people and I'm truthful, that they would be honest and truthful with me. If I was loyal to them, that they would be loyal to me. But the fact of the matter is not. And I cannot hold them responsible for who they are. They are those type of people, and that's okay. And whatever lessons they're learning at the time, that is what they have to go through. So whether they wanted me gone for some reason, maybe they just wanted to change and that was the excuse they did. Maybe they heard something that wasn't true and they instantly believed it, or whatever the case is, right away the ego wants justification, and it's your job to stop, because this is what creates a lot of the mental discord within you, is because our mind wants to rationalize everything, and right away, the moment we try to rationalize, the moment we say, well, this is unfair, I want justification, I want justice because I've done this, this, and this, and really we start throwing a little tantrum of what we've done, and we start putting these, columns together of what we've done and what they've done for us, like we're owed, and right, what happens when we want to justify? Anytime you want to justify, what emotion pops into your head, or what emotion pops up? Anger, right? Well, this is not, Trump did this, or this person did this, my last ex-girlfriend did this, my last boyfriend did this, my mom did this, and my dad did this, and that cop shouldn't have given me a ticket for speeding even though I was doing 15 miles an hour. How dare they? And we justify our actions. Why? Because we don't take responsibility for ourselves. And you know what? It was time for me to go. It was time for me to leave, because I wanted to do other things, but out of my loyalty to people, I didn't want to leave. I liked the place I was at, and I'm kind of glad the way things happened, because it shifted me. The moment this shifted, all of a sudden the radio show popped up, and all sorts of different things popped up, and just my business went in a different direction. And sometimes we get comfortable in our areas, and life has to move us in a different direction in order for us to fulfill the path that we're supposed to go down. But when you are coming from a place of anger and resentment, it's because your idea of your perception is dictated by your reaction due to the justification that that this is right and this is wrong. And again, I'm going to talk about Miss Raina's no words, because Miss Raina's no words really will solve all chaos when you truly understand that concept and you really get to it and you eliminate these ideas from your mind, heart, and speech. You will realize how much that chaos just disappears, judgment disappears, anger disappears, but your mind is trying to make things right because I was just done wrong. That's justification, right? That's right or wrong. I was good to them and they just did me bad. Now what am I supposed to do? And it kind of throws us, because we like to have things that are, in homeostasis. We like to have things that are, smooth sailing. And a lot of times we don't prepare ourselves for a quick change. Sometimes the change happens in life that, that needs to be changed. And I know even with me working, when I used to do psychic readings all the time, I would come up to people would come up to me and I said, you need to make this change. You need to make this change. If you don't, the universe is going to, well, I don't know if I can. Okay, I'm going to do it. And then they come back, 2 months later, oh my God, my life's falling apart. And I said, did you make the change that you nope? Well, then the universe made it for you. And then we create this. But the funny thing is the ego has to stop, because we are associating everything we do. We are associating, those instances with everything that has ever been done to us. And isn't that amazing? If you can actually think about, our brain works so fast that really it has a line. It has a line of things that people have done to us. And it keeps it there kind of like ammunition, because when you're angry at someone, are you one of those people that can throw things in somebody's face so quickly and boom, 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 and just cut them down to size, because it's like you have ammunition waiting for you? And this is what happens, is our brain has this ammunition waiting, and it really does. Our ego says, well, this happened to me. See, it happened here and happened here and happened here. And it allows us to play the victim. We'll be right back after these messages from the life of Raina.
A message from the life of Raina. We live in a world faced with many tough challenges. Our lives become chaotic and filled with disaster ever so quickly, most of the time before we even realize. Our issues beat down our mental mindset, and an imbalance of emotions become prevalent. The life of Raina is dedicated to helping people on the deepest spiritual level. Miss Raina, the creator of Transcendental Development and Growth, works on your core issues and finds the solutions which allow you to break free from the emotional bondages of life, helping you achieve the life you've always wanted to live. Isn't it time that you lived life for you? Call the Life of Raina, 561-846-2190, and schedule your appointment today. That's 561-846-2190. Or email thelifeofraina@icloud.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back. You're listening to Miss Raina on Transcendental Transformation. If you'd like to give us a call, the number is 561-623-9429 or web chat me on the W4CY.com website. Okay, so we are talking about mental health and why it is so important for us. And, and we were just talking about the ego and what the ego does and what our mind does in order for us to fuel this anger. And so, in the justification process of right and wrong, we do that. We will fire that ammunition. We will take all that ammunition and tie it into everything that's ever done to us. Because how many people, when we have something that happens to us, how many of us go into a depression or go into, see, I told you so, see, I'm not good enough, I'm too fat, I'm too this, I'm too that, and we go into this whole trip after one incident that happens to us. And we need to learn to stop the justification. We need to learn to stop the ego. And this is why the Miss Raina's no words are so important for you guys to learn. If you don't understand why, then our ego is going to run rampant until we understand it. But being aware of our thoughts and our thinking, why are we thinking this? With the students I had today, again, this was a repetitive thing today. It was, I asked them, I said, do you ever sit down and think when you react to somebody, when you get hurt by someone, when you take something personal, when you do all these things, do you ever think about why you've done that? Why you got reacted, why you started flicking this person off, why you got so aggressive, why you took this personally? Did you ever think about it? Well, no, I just, this person did this to me. And that's your justification. This person did this to me, so I reacted this way. And you know what? It's okay because they did this to me. Sounds like a bunch of 5-year-olds running around. And we are adults. We're supposed to be mature. We're supposed to process things differently. We're supposed to take responsibility. And, and I know a lot of people have a hard time when I say every reaction in your life and every way you perceive things and judge things and ignore things is your responsibility. And I know in our society, we do not like to take responsibility. We like to place the blame on everybody. But in our life, we have to learn to take responsibility for our actions, our reactions, our thoughts, and everything that happens. Even today, even today, if someone comes at me, and picks a fight, I have the responsibility to either engage in that fight, to react in that fight, not to react, or to take it personally. I could have just gone off on somebody and just been like, well, she shouldn't start with me and acted all tough. But no, I just said, you know what, I'm not going to play this. If you took that, then I'm sorry, but I'm not going to apologize for something that, and I just left it alone. I walked away because that's not going to happen. And so you have to be aware of it. You have to start thinking, well, why am I thinking this? Why, what caused me? What is the trigger? What is the trigger in my life that created this idea that caused me to this? Because say one of the things I've always had a hard time with is driving in the car. I'm claustrophobic and I've suffered from anxiety for a while. And, and when someone comes close to hitting me, it used to send me off in a frenzy. I would be so reactive. I would be so crazy for 5-10 minutes until I calmed down because my adrenaline would pump. I would go into fight or flight, and then I would start cursing and cussing, and then I would have to pull over because I would just be freaked out. And then I had to pick apart why I'm becoming reactive. And of course, my first thought was, well, they put me in danger. Their carelessness put me in danger. Well, yes, that is true. Their carelessness did put me in danger. But why did I react so crazily? And then I had to learn to break things down. I always talk to people and tell them, you have to ask who, what, when, where, why, and how. Towards everything we do, every thought process, every time we start to react, we have to ask who, what, when, where, why, and how. Why am I thinking? Why am I like this? Why did I react? How did I react? Why? If this is the cause, then what is it about that? What is the trigger? Because full awareness of our thoughts is the first step to mental health. If you want to start taking charge of, if you're tired of depression, if you're tired of this, and I go back and forth between the thoughts of depression because I've dealt with depression, chronic depression my whole life, and and a lot of times I go back and forth because at one point I sometimes times used to I studied, and some people, I've seen some research that said it can also be a chemical imbalance. But but doing what I do, I find a lot of things, is a lot of times our depressions and our anxieties are fear related or experience related, and it creates this imbalance within our head. And I know some of you that are gung-ho on chemical, on the chemical imbalance are going to be like, oh no, she's wrong right away. But just take a step back and listen, because I've created a life even within myself where my anxiety doesn't get like it is anymore. I mean, geez, just yesterday I challenged myself. I locked myself in a spa pod. My friend Caleb got me a package to those sensory deprivation pods, and they're small pods locked in water where it's dark, you can't see anything, hear anything, and you just float there for an hour. And years ago I would have never done it, and I will be honest, the first few minutes I was freaking out before I got into it because I was a little nervous because I've never done it. But I challenged myself. I said, my fears are not going to control me. My mental health is more important, and I'm not going to allow myself to be dictated and reactive by a fear, because I've never experienced this. How do I know how I'm going to react to this? Well, you can't, and my mind tried to ration. Well, you can't be under covers very long sometimes, or freaking. And I said, nope, I am going to take charge of this. And so what I did is, she said, well, there's a light there. You can crack the door open if you're claustrophobic. You don't have to shut it all the way. And you know what I did? I put the earplugs in, I turned off the lights and closed the door. In the first couple of minutes, I'm going to tell you, my mind wanted to go there. It wanted to say, oh my God, you're locked in a box, you're in a coffin, you're being buried alive, and go nuts. And I said, nope. I just kept doing meditation breathing, and I kept talking to myself, no, I am in control. I got this. I am stronger than my fears. And did you know, within 2 minutes, I went into a deep meditation, and the hour passed by like it was 2 minutes. And I had the most amazing time. I challenged myself. I went through for the whole hour. I didn't freak out. I went through it, and I passed it, and I had this amazing experience. I forgot that I was in a pod. I forgot that I was floating in water. It was kind of like this spiritual space type of meditation. It was real, and my body felt rejuvenated, and my mind felt clear. And you know what? I sat there and I said, well, you know what? If I can do this, I'm going to start working on my claustrophobia even more. I'm going to start tackling. I'm going to start putting myself in positions where I am in tight spaces to show myself that it's there. And, and these are the type of things that we have to do, because that's being aware. Our awareness is what's dictating you, what's controlling you. Why am I, do you realize that you become reactive? Like this poor lady, maybe she was just in a bad mood today. Maybe she was grumpy. Maybe she was tired, maybe something, and she was looking for a fight. But, being aware of our state of mind, our emotional and mental state of mind, tells us, what's going on. And so you have to learn to be aware of your thoughts and be aware of your reactions. And I mean, because if you're not aware, how do you change them? How do you change them if those type of things are going on? Because your ego is always going to say, well, this is right, this is wrong, this is positive, this is negative, this is justice, this is injustice. And we're not going to change our minds, because I don't know how many times people come up and they'll say something and they don't realize it. And then I'm like, do you realize what you just did? And then they sit there and look at me and they're like, no, can you tell me? And I sit there and I'm like, no, it's not Miss Raina's job to always tell you what to do. You have to start taking responsibility for yourself and start paying attention to who you are. And if you don't, if you allow these no words, and you allow the justification of the ego and the victim and survivor to play you like a ping pong match, then depression is going to happen. Anxiety is going to happen. Stress is going to happen. You're going to end up with low self-esteem. You're going to end up with no confidence. You're going to end up in anger and grief and shame, and you're going to be pointing the finger at everyone saying, no, they did it, they did it, they did it. And our depression is one of those things that is rampant in our country. Depression, stress, and anxiety are top as far as emotional imbalance, are top in our country, because we believe through our perception that everything has to be a certain way, and that is our ego. Our ego creates the mental imbalance. Your belief systems create the mental imbalance, whether they're religious, political, whether they're spiritual, no matter what they are, your belief systems will create that imbalance. And when you try to justify your actions or the way of thinking, your anger and all that stuff, it creates even more. And then you go into these ideas and depression coming from someone who has spent 40 years, almost 40 years in clinical depression, it's just, you have to take a step back and say, okay, what can I do for me? What is it, if I can get away from what's done to me, what's unfair to me, this shouldn't happen to me, life should be this way. If I can get away from those ideas, if I can get away from those 4 sentences, then how can I change my thought process to dictate what I want? Because if I want to change my perception and to dictate an outcome, then I have to think differently. I have to be aware of what I'm doing. I have to change the situation it is. And you have to learn. You have to learn to accept things. Acceptance is huge in our life. So many of us don't. We don't accept things. We were conditioned to ideas, and those ideas in our mind are true, even if they're not. And no matter how much we have proof now that things have changed, and we have, and that we still hold on to those ideas, and we will not waver from them, because those ideas, and then it creates the hatred, it creates the anger, it creates that. And when someone tries to tell you something differently, you reject it instantly, because you don't want to understand the growth that humanity and the mind has to evolve. Everything in this world has to evolve, including you. And the people that don't evolve suffer the most. And so if you're looking at your life and you're saying, well, and you're just miserable, you're upset, or you just wish, maybe you're one of those that just wishes life was different, and you kind of look at other people and you say, oh man, I wish my life was like theirs, and I wish I was all kumbaya like this, or I wish I could believe this. But if you don't allow yourself to challenge yourself into belief systems and change things and expand, that doesn't mean you have to abandon everything and that, but learn to grow, because life grows. You have to be able to. Acceptance is huge. Acceptance is part of personal growth. If you want confidence, if you want that self-esteem, then you have to learn to accept it. Responsibility and acceptance go hand in hand. You cannot be responsible without acceptance, and you cannot have acceptance without responsibility, because that means you and you alone are a part of it. And and I understand some people, with their mental health, some people do have chemical dependencies or chemical deficiencies in other areas, and I'm not talking about just depression. I'm talking like bipolar and everything, where we have to do medication and stuff. But even if you have some type of disease or illness or something like that, and that doesn't mean that you can't have a happy life, because we accept the fact a lot of times, oh, I have this illness, or I have this disease, or I have this disability. And I hate those words. I really hate using those words, because that puts you down right away. That says, if I have this, that means my life can never be what it is because I have this disease. And so many of us become victimized. I know people that have bipolar that live happy lives. That doesn't mean that they don't have things going on, but that doesn't mean that they can't do it. And so we have to learn to accept these things. We have to learn to be able to say, okay, well, yes, I may have this, but that doesn't mean I can't do this and this and this. Yes, I may have this, or I may have this, but that doesn't mean I have to have it for the rest of my life. And in medicine, we're always growing, and I'll be the first to say that. That's why they call it practicing medicine. When you look at life and you say, well, it's practicing. Just because we don't have, any type of cures for some of the things today, doesn't mean we won't, or doesn't mean we don't. Maybe we just don't understand it. Maybe it's just a small, configuring of some neural pathways or something, and once our medicine advanced, maybe we can change things, because I know we're manipulating genes all the time, we're doing things, we're doing stem cells and all sorts of stuff, and if we can start growing body parts back, doing head transplants, we're doing head transplants now and all sorts of different things. That doesn't mean that we should just shut out our lives and say, oh, well, there's no hope for me. But a lot of times we just like to say, oh, well, I have this, and then we give up. And so many of us, I have friends that have done that. Oh, you know what? I have this disease, or I have this. I can't ever work. I can't do anything. No, yes, you can. You know, I mean, you can do anything you want, no matter what. I know people that are paralyzed and, you know, halfway down, and they still go out there and do their thing, you know, do whatever they can, exercise, work, do this. I know people that have one arm and go out and do whatever they can. So it's all in perception of how you accept yourself. If you accept yourself as worthless, then that's what's going to be. If you accept yourself as someone who's going to go out there and owns whatever's going on, then you're going to be that. And that's part of the mental health game. We look at that and we battle that with our ego, our victim. And that's why I'm talking about the victim and the survivor so much, because the survivor will tell you, oh, I'm going to do this. I can't do this without. But sometimes we need the help. The victim will say, you're not good enough. You have this. You can't do this. And it'll beat us up. And then we sit around and just wish on our couch all day that something would happen, or a universe or a God would intervene, or somebody would be blessed me, and life would change. But the battle of the ego itself has to change. You know, acceptance wins the battle. I don't know how many times throughout my life and how many times throughout my students, no matter where I lived, you know, how many times the minute they accepted something, whether it's the chaos that their parents had stressed on, whatever it is in life, no matter how chaotic it is, you know, when you learn to accept it, you will see the anger and the grief and everything just disappear. I know as far as my gender issues and my sexuality issues and all sorts of different things, I know that when I, you know, when I rejected who I was, you know how many times I tried to kill myself. I acted out in anger, and I tried to fight people, and I was a totally different person rejecting who I was. Even as who I am as a guide and teacher and everything, I rejected everything. And then when I rejected everything, I mean, my life was chaotic. And at one point, I was lucky to get out of high school. I was lucky that I didn't end up in jail or something, or do something really stupid. And you know what? I could have. I've tried to attempt suicide several times. And, you know, luckily I'm really bad at that, because I wouldn't be here right now. And I'm glad that those things happened, but at the same time, I mean, it taught me to change my perspective in a lot of things. And I'm telling you, the depression went down a lot and almost is nil. The anxiety has calmed down a lot. The claustrophobia, you know, I feel great doing what I did, because claustrophobia is one of my things that have always, whether I'm in crowds or anything, or, you know, with my agoraphobia or whatever, you know, and the moment I tackle something, I realize that no matter how much that my mind tries to say I can't do it, I realize that I have the power. I have the power to do whatever, you know. So if we have these ideas, then we have to learn to allow us to learn the situation. I found out that in this lesson of the situation that, you know, part of my claustrophobia, whether it was from a past life or this life or whatever, is dictated by fear due to something else. And it was dictating that. And so now that I've always known that, but when I tested myself in this thing, I realized that my mind has changed. As I grow, as I age, as I change myself, I realize that I have more control. And when we kind of fool ourselves thinking that, oh, when we're younger, we have more control. When we start to age, we have less, you know, control over ourselves. We, you know, our brain and body doesn't work. But I'm telling you, even with the illness that I have, I'm getting healthier with this, and my hip, even though that's always going to be a problem, I'm still working on that. But my mind is still sharp, and that's what I love about it. And so the lessons that come in, and I saw that lesson, and I was like, all right, now that I know I could do this, now I know that there's a possibility for me to conquer my claustrophobia. I'm able to focus on that. And let me tell you something, knowing me, I'm going to put a plan together to make sure I do that. Because that's the type of person I am. I'm kind of, nerdy like that. I'll sit there and think of a plan of how to challenge myself, what to do, to constantly show. And the more I do it, the less these things affect me. But, a lot of times our mental health is based on the things that we are unlearned or unfinished lessons. It's not resolved. I mean, a lot of times with whatever we're doing, we have these unfinished lessons, as I always say, and our emotions remind us. Anytime we're emotional chaos, anytime we sit around with a heavy heart, how many of you are so stressed out or have some big challenges in life, and it's unresolved anger, and the moment you go to sleep, all of a sudden you'll be so tired, and the minute you lay down, your mind goes and you pop up. Then you're like, oh geez, then you lay, toss and turn, and then all of a sudden you get up, and the moment you get up, start to do something, you get all tired again. And that is the prime example of unfinished business, of unfinished lessons. You have emotional discord inside, you have mental discord inside, and you're not resolving what it is. You have to learn to resolve. You can't push down those emotions forever. You can't push down life. You can't push down the things that have happened. Again, back to the acceptance, you have to accept the things that happen. You have to accept you for who you are. You have to accept the things about you that you may not like. You may not want to look a certain way, or you may want to look a certain way, or you may not like the fact that this happened or this, or maybe, whatever the case is, but you have to come down it. And the more you push down, the more emotional chaos will come. And the more we don't deal with it, the more association it's going to happen with the anxiety, depression, or whatever. And when you're in those modes, I like to use depression now because I'll force myself into depression when I'm overworked. I'll force it to happen so that I have time to sit and relax, so I can sit there and break things down. A lot of times we look at depression or whatever, or anything as something that takes us out of the game. But when you change the thing and say, well, how can I use this to my advantage? How can I take this lesson? If my emotions right now are screaming, or my mind is just so all over the place and saying, and it's screaming, resolve me. Say like we're constantly thinking about something that has happened to us, or someone that's done us wrong, and it constantly plays over in our head. Or maybe we messed up and we try to play it over, where we've changed the outcome of whatever, and no matter how many times we do it. But when your mind is screaming, resolve me, this is a good chance, because like I said, I use my depression when I do force myself to go into it, or when I go into it, I use it and I say, okay, today is a time for rest and digest. This is a time I'm on the plateau that I need to rest and observe. What can I rest and observe, so when I get back out of this, that I can kind of take it into a new direction. I can take it into the direction that I do. And your body goes in cycles. Your body, just like the moon and the sun and the stars and everything else, night to day, everything is in a cycle, and so are your emotions. Even if you consider yourself a healthy person, you too have a cycle in you. And that's why you get moody for no reason. That's why sometimes you get sad and vice versa. But when these things are not resolved, and you take that idea and you say, okay, well, how, and you take the time to break these things down, you'll learn to accept things more. You'll learn to be more aware, because, I always tell people, and I know you guys have heard this, but, the journaling, every teacher in the spiritual community or whatever will tell you, get a journal. But they don't tell you why. And the journal will help you not just collect your thoughts, but it'll show you firsthand on the way you are thinking right there. It's in your own words, and that's why I tell people to write as emotionally raw as possible. Write how you feel at that moment, what you're thinking, what's going on, and even write it with that passion, whether it's anger or grief or whatever. Let those tears fall on that paper. There'd be times I'd be crying, writing and stuff. I'd let my tears fall on the paper, try not to get on the ink, but I would allow that emotion to come through. So therefore, when I'm on my rest and digest period, or I'm on that plateau, I go back and I read that and I'm like, oh my God, this is the way I was thinking. And it's clear as day, because now I'm an outside perspective, or I have an outside perspective. I'm seeing it from almost like a third party perspective of that. And I'm saying, wow, this is how I'm acting. This is what I'm seeing. And sometimes I chuckle because I don't see it at that time. And I go back and I look at past journals, and I sit there and I say, wow, God, what a baby I was. What a little entitled little turd I was. I was just one of the, in that moment, a period of time, man, I really thought I was owed this, and I laugh at myself. But, during those times, it gave me perspective on what I was really looking at. And it helped me resolve a lot of my mental, emotional chaos too. And that's what we have to come down to. We have to look at that and be able to do that. I mean, if we talk about, let's say we talk about like self-love, because when we're sometimes mentally or emotionally distraught, we like to look at self-love, and we like to look and say, oh, I mean, if I really asked you if you really loved yourselves and really cared about yourselves, some of you might say yeah and might be lying, and some of you might be honest and say not really, and some of you may really truly love yourselves. But the test of truly loving yourselves is how you deal with yourself, and what if you take care of yourself, if you're willing to take time for you and do what you need to do, and not just put everybody first, but it always shows in your actions. And that's what has to happen. So if we look at it and we say, well, if we don't love ourselves, if we do love ourselves, then, if we don't, then what part of the mental aspect don't we love? What is our mind saying to us that says, well, this is not good enough for me. This should be changed. This should be better. This should be different. And this is what I have to do. I mean, a lot of us may say, weight, and I always go with physical exercise, because I know it's a big thing in our country. We really like to, our appearance is one of the biggest things, and I don't know who doesn't, but we all like to look good. We all want to be healthy and all this different stuff. But a lot of times we'd say, well, I want to get physically fit. I want a physically fit body. I want to rest. I want to follow. And then my mind, says, no, I don't want that. In order for me to get fit, in order for me to love myself, in order for me to care about myself, I have to do these things. And so we obsess over these things. And so really the reasons that we're doing the self-love, the reason why we're helping ourselves or getting healthier or working out or doing all these things, is not because we love ourselves, because our ego is driving us, our survivor is driving us to do something that is making our mind to do this, and to the point of obsession. And then we become obsessed. We create an OCD, because we create that OCD to say, well, in order for me to feel this way, in order for me to have love or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or to be accepted, I have to be this, this, and this. I have to be all these things. And that creates that as well. And this, and so creating that OCD will create that chaos in your life, and be able to change that, and you won't be able to change that, because it'll become part of that. So in the spiritual aspect, because I think we only got a couple minutes left, but in the spiritual aspect, it's always, spiritual, then mental, then emotional and stuff like that. But, a lot of times we search the meaning of life. We're searching the meaning of our lives. And each life, as I've told you, we come here as a character, and we come here with specific ideas. And that's why I don't want to change people, because people aren't going to change. People are going to believe what they're going to believe. And no matter, even if you show them hands down proof on paper that's numerous studies, they're still going to believe that. So my goal is not to change, because I know that they're here for a specific reason, and eventually they will grow into what they need to through their evolution. But so each life you have to relearn to love yourself. You have to relearn to get out of those conditioned belief systems. You have to relearn to find who you are, to go through this emotional chaos, and prove to yourself that you're not doing this because, of all these other ideas, but because you're worth it. So many of us don't believe that we're worth it, and we chase these ideas of gods, goddesses, politics, health and fitness and all these things, success, cars, money, because we truly believe that it is going to bring us happiness, that it's going to stop the mental chaos, the mental discord within us. But it's not. And that's where the judgment comes in. That's why so many of us, even though we might be good and nice people and stuff, we're judgmental towards everybody that thinks differently and that acts differently. And we're the ones who knows. I mean, every religion believes that they're the ones who know. Every politics believes that they're the ones that's right. Every form of spirituality, everybody always believes that their way is the way. And we have to learn to walk away from that. And so when we love ourselves, it doesn't matter. That's the reason why when I teach you guys about love, compassion, and understanding. And really, love is a concept that later on and down the road in the show, I'm going to start changing that idea, because love is a concept that needs expanding. But those are the only things. Everything else should go to the wayside. If you can't have compassion for yourself or others, or understanding for yourself or others, or love for yourself or others, then the rest doesn't matter. Your belief systems, your way you think and do and act and everything doesn't matter. And this all contributes to the mental health. So I think we're going to stop here for tonight. I have a lot more to go on, but you know what? I'm getting a little tired, and I think it's time for us to stop. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. If you'd like to follow us, you can follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com/Transcendental Transformation. Follow us on our YouTube at youtube.com/Transcendental Transformation. Visit my website, soulandspiritguide.com. Sign up for the newsletter to receive special VIP access to the website and special guest offers when we have guests. If you have any questions, as always, you can email me at transcendentaltransformations@gmail.com. Visit the w4cy.com website, and always remember to believe in yourself, and it's not our abilities or our talents that make us who we are, but it is our choices. Thank you and have a great day.